those, then I'm down to just have leftovers too. Sorry. Did you want that open?
Yeah, it's good. And here we are for the call-in show. I'm very excited about this. These call-in shows are always so much fun, admittedly. And one of my favorite things to do. It still says on Twitch at the moment that this is Dualistic Unity replay. I will take that away and fix that right now, so that way it doesn't say that anymore. There we go. For anybody who is watching and wondering, no, this is not a replay. This is happening live. Unless, of course, you're playing it after, in which case it's not happening live. Anyway, obviously, I'm in a weird and kind of funny mood today. I'm just tired of taking shit too seriously. Oh, God. You know, sometimes you have to, because life is no, it's not that it's a serious endeavor, but it certainly is something that should be a priority, I guess. The things in your head are not life, though. It helps you remember that. You know, your assumptions about life, it's not life. Your thoughts about life are not life. Yeah. All of that, it's not life. I mean, even your fears of what could happen in the future are not things that are happening right now. So how much are you ruled by these things? How much of your life is dictated by these fictions, these ghosts? And that's the thing, is you can try to get to a place where you're like, oh, I'm not caught up in that anymore, you know, because I've practiced and I've disciplined and I've done all of that. I don't know if that works. That's never worked for me. It always seems like it adds so much pressure that you're just chasing more ghosts, you know, some idea now of peace, some idea of some, you know, enlightenment. I know one thing that's worked for me, though. I'm just fucking tired of it. That's really it. Like, I'm just disillusioned with the idea of myself and all of the shit that goes with it. It's never paid off. It's never done anything except actually create some kind of a thin veil between me and everything that's happening. Everyone that is speaking to me is somehow being translated through this idea of myself, unless I just go, well, fuck, that's not going anywhere. And I get tired of it, right? Or I just relax enough to let it go. And now I'm not thinking about it. But I see it all the time. You know, it's just that. It's like you can think about yourself and you can drive yourself nuts trying to devote yourself to quote unquote self-improvement. Or you can relax. You can admit that you don't know, that you're never going to know, and all you can do is move forward, and that's the very best that is possible for you based on everything that you currently know. Once you can experience that, then all of a sudden you're in life and things start to improve. But as long as you're trying to improve the idea of you, it's like you're stepping out of life, hoping to get better at it. If you could just watch it for long enough and analyze it, it's like that's not how it works. You can't do that. You can't understand how to ride a bike without getting on that bike and wobbling, because that's where the understanding comes in. You can sit there and go, well, I know the tires spin and that the spokes hold the tires together and they connect to this chain. And if I turn the pedal, then the tire will turn. So obviously it's very simple to ride a bike. Like, yeah, get on it. All right. It's like, well, it could fall. Exactly. And that's the only way that you get to learn, right? Is to get on and fall and wobble and go through it. But that's the point. Every step of the way, you're learning more about just paying attention and not doubting yourself, just watching what you're doing. It's exactly like riding a bike. Live. But that means to just be in the moment you're in.
Yeah, and just actually be involved in it, and not thinking that it's something that it's like once I figure this out, once I figure out myself, then there'll be this sense of like what a lighter experience, lighter than what you could do right now by not trying to be something or hold yourself up to some bar, or you know, become something more what you are, and instead of just continuing to go through reality without so many assumptions about how it's going or how you're doing at all. You know, and I know this is a call-in show here, so if anyone would like to call in, it's dualistunity.com/live. Yep. Get that link. And if you got questions, we can throw them on here. I know we may have had a couple come through, but Yeah, that sense of just moment to moment having faith in yourself, like it really is something that I guess can start to be cultivated in a sense, like being able to just continue, just continue on despite any perception, any thought, any, assumption about how you're doing comes to mind. Like, well, where do I go next? What do I do next? It's like when it doesn't matter so much, you can go in any direction, take something in any way. Like, realize this thing we got here, this lighter. I hesitant to say lighter just because it's so closely tied to this, and sometimes we're on platforms that don't like anyone talking about that, but even just that, talking about the Zillow and learning the process of how they're actually refilled, like it's refilled with fuel, and how I learned that at this event in Hollywood at a brand new dispensary that's going to be opening in June. And it's an incredible spot. It's called Keys Hollywood, right on Sunset Boulevard. And just being able to take anything in in any direction and talk about it without so much regard for like, oh, is this worth saying or talking about? Like, nah, as much as anything else, who am I to say what should and shouldn't be expressed or play out? Like,
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's a question. We have somebody in the queue, but we also have a question from the Discord. What do we do? Do we let the person in? Do we answer the question first? Do we let the person in and answer the question? Is that fair? Does that take up their 10 minutes? There's so many fucking considerations. I vote we just let them in because we know who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Game.
we know it is. See, there's that false sense of certainty when we could actually let her in. She'd be like, "Fuck you! I don't want to answer your questions." Let's see what she's got to say. Amanda, who will be sitting here with us for the next call-in show. Remember that, because we're all going to be sitting here jamming. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we will get to this Discord question. Amanda, how's it going?
Hello, how you doing?
Great. I just sold my car. It's
Oh,
fantastic.
it's fantastic.
Congratulations.
I'm
Bittersweet.
relieved. That's the last thing that I really had to sell beforehand. And but that changes my plan because instead of being able to drive to my destination to take my flight, now I have to figure out a way for someone else to drive me. And I've got to get this car, I got to get my last boxes shipped in the morning before, kind of turning over the vehicle. So I'm like, shit, great. But
Okay, what's next? All right.
right, like riding the wave, man. Like that's what I put. Like, what do you want to talk about? Like riding the wave. But I had heard that there's a question. So
There
Discord
was a
question.
question. There was a question, and then I put my phone down.
Bring it.
I lost my phone. Now I
Bring
can't
it on,
find my
sir.
phone. All right, hold up. Actually, yeah, this is a great one. Okay. Are some configurations of mind more primed for realization than others?
Hmm.
We actually talked about
I want to say no.
Really? Nice. All right. Flesh that out a bit for me.
I just because I used to think that like you had to go through shit to develop strength. And that was a bitter pill for me to swallow, that people don't actually have to get beaten to develop strength. They don't have to go through harrowing situations to develop strength. And I learned a lot of that from watching people that came from what I thought were privileged backgrounds and recognizing their suffering as being just as real as the suffering that I went through, despite it looking very different. So I used to want to say like, oh, no, there are definitely people that are more primed for enlightenment because they've put in their reps. And it's so clear that they've put in their reps. But that's only me giving credit to a certain kind of rep. But every single moment that you're here, every single moment that you are paying attention or getting caught up in your story is a rep. So I don't want to say that there is a particular mindset that's more prime, because that would be me saying that there is there's an advantaged group, and wouldn't I love there to be a group of people that just have an advantage towards this certain kind of realization? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Yeah, assuming that assuming that there is some state of mind that makes you more primed. It's like, no, of course not, because it's that. And we were talking a little bit about this earlier. Like it's that idea of some state of mind too, but it is, to a degree, like experiences definitely allow for the opportunity to apply anything, any sort of assumption. And so jumping into new stuff, trying new things, like gives you that opportunity at least to see what you're made of, and kind of have the opportunity to build strength even. And so you wonder why, oh, but getting outside your comfort zone, blah blah blah, like why even do that? Why try new things? Why jump into anything new? Why take a certain substance because it's gonna give me less sense of certainty. It's like that's exactly why, because that's the experience that helps build strength in yourself no matter what you're doing. It's like just being willing to step into a situation, get into some thing that you're doing, some call, without so much of a sense of a plan or like right next thing to express or share, or anything like that, is as much giving yourself the opportunity to keep moving through stuff, just not taking a second to measure how you're doing as you go. Like even that is being able to cultivate it to some degree.
Yeah, I feel like we develop sensitivity, right? And when we see somebody that's developed a lot of sensitivity, we almost want them to be an outlier. It's they're special. Of course they figured it out. Like that's all, like it would be so easy if it was, because I had a conversation with some friends that I had chatted with that I grew up with in middle school, and I haven't seen them, like really hung out with them since we were like teenagers. And I just saw them like last week. And one of the friends that I probably haven't chatted with her in like over a decade, she's sitting in my apartment and she looks at me and she's like, I always thought you were a lesbian. And I look at her and I'm like, wouldn't it be easier for you if I was? I'm pretty sure it would be a lot easier for you if I was. And I said that like exactly in those words back to her, and she looked almost appalled. And I'm like, because you want me to be so different because my choices look different, that you want to say that my choices were made that way because I am so different than you. But if you could see how similar we are, it's not that I'm special or I'm so different, and that's why my choices look so differently than you. It's just that I made different choices, not because I am such a different person than you. But it would be really easy if you could just say that I am so different, and that's why my choices look so different to yours.
Good answer. I appreciate that. You want to field one more?
Hell yeah, bring it on.
All right. Why the fuck not? And then you can weigh in on this one after the fact.
All right.
She's our guest for now. Do you make promises to yourself? If so, why? And have you ever broken them?
No, not anymore. I don't make promises, and I reject promises when other people make them to me. So like for instance, like if I haven't chatted with somebody in months or years and we happen to re-link up and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I promise I'll be in touch." When I was like, "I don't need that promise. No, thank you." Noted and rejected. Like I'm all set on that promise because I don't have an expectation for you to meet. So why do you need to make a promise over what you're going to do when we don't know that? So I do the same practice with myself. I don't make promises to myself anymore because I'm not creating an ideal to live up to. Like it's, what am I doing right now? Right? Do I need to make a promise about what am I doing right now? I promise to pay more attention later, guys. When the only place I can pay attention is right now. So for me, I do not like making promises anymore. And I'm not saying that I never will, but at least that's been my new tendency, is to not immediately make a promise to myself and to not accept a hollow promise when I'm making it or when someone's trying to make it to me. It's like, you don't need to feel better that we haven't spoken in the past. We're talking right now, and that's enough for me. So I don't need you to promise what you're going to do later when the fact that we're talking right now is enough for me, and I'm not looking for anything else. So thank you, but no thank you.
Nice. How's that? All right. You're up.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, that sense of like making yourself promises and needing to live up to some bar. It's like, it's almost a way to just feel better about yourself right now without, guaranteeing any guarantee of change. Because again, it's like, if you're changing, that change is happening now. And so, yeah, any promise that I make to myself or anyone, or any promise that anyone gives me, is there's no sense of ownership in that. It's like passing off some sense of just responsibility right now, promising something. It's like, it can become this sort of way that you just pass off responsibility if you promise some future thing instead of just, doing it now. Like, doing that or doing this in the future instead of just making the most of the experience that you're in, and just paying attention. And so, yeah, there's been, I mean, for me, making promises to myself has definitely been this sort of like driving force, even for, like the next day. It's like making, promise to myself I'll wake up at a certain time, and then you like needing that in order to do that, instead of just acting, instead of just, continuing to pay attention. It's like something almost that can, yeah, it's something that can just take you away from the experience that you're having right now, and give you some guarantee of something in the future, when that's never really the case at all.
That's it, right? It's
Yeah.
a self-soothing fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Like, I love how we do this to ourselves, and we do it quite easily without ever thinking about it. It's like, okay, because I said I promise, it's definitely not going to happen. Like, it's the funniest damn thing. It's like, look, my fingers were crossed. It's like, it's just so ridiculous, but it really is just that. Like, nope, I've committed. I've committed. I've said I promised. I have crossed my heart and hoped to die. Therefore it is binding. Right? Like, that's it. Pinky promise. Exactly. Well said. It's a contract. I can't break it now. And it's fucking ridiculous. Like, right to the point where we make it into like a cultural thing, like a yearly celebration, your New Year's resolution, the annual promise. It's got all of that extra meaning now. It's like, oh shit, it's on New Year's. Oh, now I know I'm gonna do it. And it's just us just fucking with ourselves. We're just like, yeah. Now it means something. And it's just because we don't want to do it moment by moment, right?
Nope. We got to bring back the real pinky promises. When you would break a pinky promise back in the day, they would cut off your pinky. Talk about, accountability.
That is high stakes for sure.
You'd be much more willing to hold up your pinky promises if you knew that your pinkies were on the line.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Cause that sense of, making it a big promise to yourself at one point, it's like, it's just another way as you go, even to continue to do things because it was a promise, instead of just being, driven by enthusiasm and like excitement and enjoyment in this in the experience that you're having, in whatever you're facing or going through or experiencing, like not needing to rely on, oh, I'm doing it, because it should be done, or I should, because there was this promise. It's just like, what are you doing right now? What action are you taking right now? What things are you expressing or experiencing right now? And that's where your life is. It's not found in some, rigid promise for some sort of routine or guarantee. So yeah, no, it doesn't really guarantee anything at all.
Right. And it's so easy to talk about like broken promises, right? Like I just had a buddy that came over to buy some of my stuff out of my apartment, and he just broke up with his girlfriend, and he's talking about that and how, she wasn't filling his cup. Word for word is what he said. And I was like, okay, well, and she's quote unquote making him into the bad guy. And I'm like, it's really easy for somebody to want to play the victim, or not play the victim, but to feel like a victim and to then make you a villain. But it's super easy for you to do that back to her. So as much as I feel for you, as much as this is raw, like, just understand that, you guys were together for almost a decade and you stood as much as she didn't show up to meet you halfway. So, right, we want to talk about how she didn't fill up your cup. Well, you stood there with an empty cup for a long time, sir. You're complaining that the cup wasn't filled, but who the hell kept you there with an empty cup, not getting filled? Right? That was just as much you as her not filling this cup. So before you want to, put yourself on this pedestal and say that, this partner didn't meet you halfway, like it took two to make this mess. So it's better that, you broke up with her, you did the healthiest option. Of course, she's pissed at you because you just burst her bubble. And it's very easy for her to say that the bubble got burst and you're the one who did it. So it's very easy for her to blame you, but just know that, like, you both blew that bubble of bullshit up together. So you may have been the one to burst it, but you also helped blow it. So let's not just put her on this, she fucked up campaign, because if she fucked up, then so did you. And you very quickly wanted to bounce out of my, he's like, I gotta go. I was like, all right, well, that's fine, because I'm also not here to coddle you, and so as much as I feel for you and empathize for you, like, you have all this space, you just moved into your own apartment, you have I was like, learn how to paint again, draw, write poetry, you've got all this space, fill it, man. That is your silver lining. Let's not think about how this door is locked. Look down the hallway at all these doors that are open for you and make the most of that. And instead of being, learn, don't get bitter. So as much as you're upset about things that have happened, it's like, this is a great opportunity for both of you. And I hope that she sees that long term, but at least you can see that now, that you have all of this space. You just made all of this space in your life for change. Make something of it, man, because it is ripe and ready for the picking for you in this moment. And if you can appreciate that, I highly recommend it.
Very nice. Absolutely. You have time to stick around? It's a call-in show.
Hell yeah. I just kicked some serious butt at work, in personal life, with friends, and I'm ready. I'm ready to chill. I've got some opening in my schedule.
Fuck yeah. All right. And again, reminder, everybody who's watching, if you want to join the call-in show, you can do that. dualisticunity.com/live. There's a small form that you will fill in acknowledging that this is an episode and that this will be broadcast later on after the fact. So if you're willing to be on here, we'd love to chat with you. You don't have to have anything in particular you want to chat about. You can just hang the fuck out with us. That'd be fun too. But in the meantime, we got a bunch of really good questions. Just saying, there's one on Discord. There's one in the comments right now. But since we were in the Discord, I'm going to continue on with that question. And again, anybody who wants to join the episode, jump in, or we're going to keep doing this. All right. Is there anything that still frightens you? Ooh. Who wants to take this one first? Can I take this one?
Go for it.
Yes. Fear frightens me. It's the whole point. And that's the big one. It's like, holy shit, I'm afraid. Yep, that's fear. And that's the experience of it. It is being afraid. So yes. Now, that said, does that stop me from acting despite the fear? Because that's really the question. It's not, can I be free of fear? It's, can I move on regardless of the fear? Like, do I have to be dictated by the fear, I guess, is the question. It's not that you're not afraid. In the same way, it's like you break up with somebody. It's not that you're not sad. That doesn't mean that you run back together, right? You move on despite the sadness. How is fear any different? It's not like when somebody like shoves you in a crowd, you're not pissed off. It's not, you don't go up and punch that person. You're just like, right, shrug that shit off. So why should fear be any different? It's not that you can't feel it and continue on despite it. But with fear, it's really hard to remember that sometimes. And that's really it, because that's the experience of fear. It's fucking overwhelming, right? But the more you run from it, the bigger it gets. And so it's not about running from your fear, avoiding your fear, killing your fear, escaping your fear, because that's all a fear response. So you just got to sit with it. Come to peace with it. Stop insisting it be something other than it is. It's allowed to be fear, and you're allowed to be afraid.
And when it is allowed to be what it is, it doesn't require some sort of response. It's not like, being afraid, like it's on the table. It's kind of like being in the shit. It's like if you're in the shit and it's okay to be in the shit, then, or just focused on anything that pops up is like, if it's still okay, then you'll be okay, because it's that response to it. And so immediately, but if you are feeling afraid and you don't think you should be afraid ever, or you're trying to hold up this bar for yourself, like, oh, I'm afraid of this, worried about this, nervous about this, blah, 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 like, and assuming that you shouldn't be, it's like there's gonna need to be almost this response of like, no, I can do this because of this, or I can't do this because of this. And then it becomes either just like a thing that then you feel better about yourself for doing, or you don't feel good about yourself for not doing, instead of just looking at the fear itself, like in the experience, and being like, okay, yeah, that's okay there. Because otherwise it can grow and it can turn into something that it isn't, to validate some perspective. But as soon as it's like, okay, there's fear, there's an experience of fear going on right now, feeling it, calling it that, whatever it is, and like that's okay too, then you can be paying attention. Because if you're afraid and you're not, you're like, oh, I shouldn't be afraid. It's like you're not going to be able to face or deal with or handle as many situations if that is what you're experiencing right now and you don't think it should be. And I think, getting into new different situations, like maybe that opportunity for that experience of just fear is more, there's more opportunities for it, because does seem less like something that you have adapted to. But if that's on the table too, then then it doesn't have to be something that's gotten rid of.
Right. I liked how you said that, like you feel like you can't handle it, because initially my initial thought was like, yeah, I'm scared of whatever I obsess about. I'm scared of whatever I decide I can't handle. Like, of course, like, immediately. And then I will normally panic and I'm like, oh no, I can't handle this. Like, I'm gripped by panic. And it's because I've decided that like this situation should not be this way, and I should control it. I should control it and transform it into a situation that I can control, which is so funny, because usually the things that I have been scared of, when I've actually experienced those things, they weren't as scary as I thought. And that's almost always been the case. I'm starting a new job. I'm meeting a new friend. I'm chatting with a stranger in a grocery store. I am, going on a date. Uh, like I can panic in all those situations. And then I go to those situations. I start the new job. I make the new friend. I talk to the stranger on the street. I ask somebody for a favor. I've been walking up to people randomly like, hey, are you sitting in a car? I'm selling a car. I'm leaving, So I'm like stopping people on the street, and they're just like, you could tell like it's an abrupt question. I'm like, I know this is random. I know this, but I've got extenuating circumstances. And so that's how I have been approaching people. But I have been terrified every time. And like even people that like I sort of know, like neighbors and like the landscaper of our property, and I like scared the shit out of him. He's like weed whacking a fucking lawn in front of the building. And I'm just like, I'm trying to like get to the front of him, and he keeps turning every time I try to get to like where he can see me coming. And so I'm like, oh fuck it, I'm gonna have to scare him. And I'm like, hey, I'm like, I live up there. Not a danger. I'm not a threat, but I am selling my car. Do you know anyone that might be interested? Right. But I have felt terrified walking up to that situation. Like, oh no, they're going to think I'm crazy. And I was like, yeah, but I still got a car to sell. So fuck it. Not so scary. And every time I've chatted with somebody, stranger or not, everybody has just like empathized and heard me out. Even if they were like, no, I'm not interested. But getting the no, or just having them hear me out, was never as scary as I thought it could be. And every time I thought it was terrifying was always because I was like, oh no, I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know if I can handle it. And that's usually where that fear came from. But I was like, fuck it. I'm going to jump in anyways. I'm going to shoot my shot anyways. And even if they say, fuck you, leave me alone, I'd be like, all right, no harm, no foul. Bye. you know, I saw you. You live in the same place. I had to shoot my shot, man. I wasn't gonna not know. So I did it despite being afraid, and in constant opportunities, you find that you can take a step despite being terrified of the step because of what you think it'll mean about you. And you only find that out when you're taking the step despite being terrified of it before you even take it.
Well said. Absolutely. All right. We have another question. This is fun. A lot of questions. Somebody actually said, what is there a name for that? Fearlophobia. It's a good name. I like it. All right. Here's the question. And it's nice. I love it when they preface this. I have a question. Thank you. The question mark indicated so. Just kidding. I'm being a dick. Anyway, do we really have free choice? Sometimes it feels like I don't, that I'm just observing myself making decisions. Now that is a fun question. So, who wants to take this one first?
I can kick it off.
Is that a choice?
Oh man, hot start, dude. Because there is that sense of like why you're choosing something and like what comes with that, the sense of ownership, you know, is it for me? Is this decision for me in response to what? In response to, you know, feeling better about something, but is that just some sort of assumption that you're making about an experience that you're having or about a feeling that you're having, like, you know, the experience of hunger and making that choice. It's like choice to eat or choice not to. It's like the hunger that you feel or experience, like that's very much real, a real thing. But then there's the indicator of like that means do this, and it doesn't necessarily. So there is that sense of choosing what my response is, but it's based sometimes on maintaining, and like how much is it based on maintaining some sense of, you know, what you've always done or who you are. And so in response to even something like hunger, like someone that can become so habitual that it's like it defines me, you know. And then every time you do it, it's like that sort of self-validating decision based on a feeling. And so if it is to validate some habitual way that you see yourself, then it makes you wonder just like whether that was something that you chose. And it can feel like it is. It can feel like you're choosing, but you know, what is it based on? And how much, it's like how much ownership do you feel like you're taking based on some assumption for like, I'm choosing this because it's going to give me or guarantee me this in the future. Like in some way, it's going to satisfy something instead of not needing to satisfy something. And it's like, where do my decisions come from? And there's at least more curiosity around that when it's not for some sense of need. And so those were some thoughts about it. I don't know if that's any sort of answer, but you know, what are we doing here if not, you know, discussing stuff? So
no, that's
that
what,
choice.
that's exactly it. Like it's like I think I'm gonna trail off there. Am I? I know it's like who's the fuck am I talking about? Amanda, do we have free choice?
I don't know. I really don't know. Because there are so many studies too that will say that the decision, right, like it has already been made. Like you've got two buttons to push, and before you press button on the left side, the signal for that has already flashed across your brain before you even hit the button. Like before you technically quote unquote make the decision to some degree implies it's already been made. So then I'm like, am I the puppeteer, the puppet over here? Like, you know, but then it doesn't feel like free choice is as individual as I would like it to be. Right? Like it's not like, it doesn't feel like it's Amanda who has full control, that's like has total autonomy and making these choices. It just feels like reality is like, it just feels like there's this like larger, maybe I don't know if it's larger, but like there's like this like this flow of intelligence And I used to feel very intelligent, and now I feel like I just tap into the intelligence that is always is is what remains. And so it doesn't feel like I am making the choice. It just feels like the choice is unfolding. And I don't have to take ownership of that choice as it's unfolding, because it doesn't mean anything about me as the quote unquote person that's executing that choice. So it just feels like there's less of a personal investment in my choices, because there's less investment in the person that's quote unquote embodying the choice. So it just feels like I'm less attached to the choices, more so. So I don't really, it doesn't really concern me as much as it used to. Is this free will or not? I'm like, I feel trapped. I can feel trapped right now if I really want to try hard. So like, what are we talking about? Like with this free choice, like I can create the prison right now. So like freedom or imprisonment really kind of feels like it's a self-determined kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, more so than it's a burden to bear.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, like I find it fascinating because our biology tries to take care of itself in a lot of ways. Like our heart beats on its own, we breathe, all of that, our body does that. That's not something that we're choosing to do, but on the other hand, we can certainly fucking interfere with it, which I find fascinating. But these processes happen on their own. So you'll notice that a lot of what we do is influenced not necessarily by choice, but so much awareness and responsibility, and a willingness to just be aware. Like there was a study where, I guess an example, I'm not sure what to call this, where basically somebody was standing in the middle of a park and they had a drink with them, and the drink was either hot or cold. And they would, as somebody was coming through the park, they go, "Excuse me, can you hold this for me?" And the person would hold the drink. Okay. And they would hold it for a few minutes, and then they'd give it back to the person and they would continue on. Well, then somebody else would come up to them and go, "Excuse me, do you have a moment?" And they would tell them a very short story about a character and ask at the end, "What did you feel about that character? What kind of character do you think this is?" The people who had held a hot drink thought the character was friendly. The people who had held a cold drink thought the character was distant. And what's funny about it is that not one of them stopped and went, "I don't fucking know." Right. And that's the point, is that we're always influenced by things, by our biology, by our biological tendency towards a habit, towards being influenced by indicators in reality, rather than stopping and going, "Hold up," and just taking a moment to recognize that we are, in fact, that easily influenced. So, do we have free will? To the capacity that we're willing to. And I think that's just it. Like we can operate almost on autopilot. Our body's going to try and keep us alive, but often as we do that, as we're lost in our head because we're not paying attention, we end up doing stupid fucking shit. Right? And it's because we're acting out these biological impulses that really have no reasonability, really have no awareness. They lack empathy, right? It's just the body trying to do its best without you in the fucking driver's seat. It's like the car swerving all over the fucking road, and it's doing the best it can. You're not in the fucking driver's seat. So you're experiencing as much free will as you are willing to be responsible for. And the more free will you are willing to be responsible for, the more you have to surrender the fiction that you're hiding it from it. So, yes, I would say that you have free will, but that it is either the very small-minded individual will of an organic being trying to survive, or a reflection of the collective will being reflected through you. It's a spectrum.
And yeah, what you're willing to look at, and like how many considerations you're willing to take in, but also not focus on necessarily, like considerations in reality, not thought about considerations like that. Then because it's so much of it is self-honesty too. And if you're being absolutely honest with yourself, it's like that shifts actions, much more than not being self-honest.
Yeah, because being self-honest means being here, means being uncertain. Because what are we being honest about other than our avoidance of life?
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's all we're doing if we're not being honest with ourselves. It's like that sense of, yeah, being able to, yeah, be separate from anything, as opposed to just expressing yourself, as opposed to just expressing what you are and what you're going through or facing or dealing with or any of it. Because any thought about like yourself and expressing yourself and sharing things, like it comes from that sense of control, that sense of certainty, and you wonder if like a lot of society is built in response, to certain experiences, like certain things that people don't want to be self-honest about. So you just believe in someone else telling you the right way. If I just do these things, if I just do these things, if I just don't do these things, then it'll all work out. It'll all play out, instead of just like moment to moment being willing to, have that faith in yourself to get through whatever you're going through, and to be honest with yourself as you go. It's the most relaxed thing you could do in the moment, but if not, it's like, yeah, it's not going to be very relaxed. Your experience, there's going to be some degree of tension if there is some, story or assumption you want to make about yourself, or even what something means about you as you go.
I want to answer a quick question from the comments section. Thank you, first of all, for everybody who's asking questions. We very much appreciate that. It informs the discussion, which might provide an opportunity for an insight that we wouldn't have thought about otherwise. And so we really appreciate you being here. The question was, and I love how direct this is, where can I find the link to join? Because I don't have my keyboard in front of me, I'm not typing that in the comments section. You can go to dualisticunity.com/live or live, however you'd like to pronounce it. It's both the same fucking word. Point is that you can join us. Just go to that link, fill in the form, and you'll be here for up to 10 minutes. And of course, we look forward to chatting with you. It's true. Live, live, it's the same thing. It's kind of like content and content. I always found that fucking fascinating. It's like, wow, okay. When I I guess can come to terms with my content, I can be content, as it were. It's just like, it's easy enough. But yeah, I thought that was funny. I don't know. Just going on a fucking tangent there. Hey, that said, if we have any more questions in the comment section, throw them at us, or you can do it on the Discord, though I'm not watching Discord anymore, just because I've checked all that and we answered the questions. But if there's comments in the comment section, do feel free to, if there's comments in the comment section, I'm just going to stop fucking talking now.
If there's words in the comment section, any types of words,
and it's okay to segue like that, everyone. You can just be
Uh-huh.
like, whoa,
yeah, are there?
I'm saying things.
Uh,
Aha, there is. Okay, so I'm also left wondering, is there really any way to know if what I'm doing isn't already present somehow? Yeah, there's an absolute way to know. It's not. It's not ever not present. Let me put it that way. It's always the present. You can't not be in the present. You just can't. You can't. You can convince yourself you're not, which is kind of funny. I always find that just fucking fascinating. Like, we can get so caught up in the idea of a trajectory, time before and after, that we can actually convince ourselves that we're somehow in that rather than here. And it's just fascinating. But the fact is that no, you're always in the present. The real question is, why are you avoiding it?
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
'Cause thought always brings you away from here. You're always here. And so when somebody had said the other day, like, the alternative is to be here. And I was like, I think we're all here by default. And we pretend that the alternative to being here is thinking, and how that feels like we're not here. And I'm like, but I don't think, same thing. I had the same thought when I was thinking about like comfort zones. Is like, I really got to work to get out of my comfort zone. I was like, you really got to work to get in that fucking comfort zone, because like, when are you not in a state of discomfort? Like this, like I have to get out of the comfort zone. I was like, I think you run back to that comfort zone so fast that you think that you have to work to get out of it. It's like, no, we put in all the work to stay in it, because life feels uncomfortable and we think that that's a problem. And so it's very easy to just get caught up in your thoughts because you feel like it's so overwhelming. And I love this insight that came out of one of our recent retreats, which was that life very easily feels like too much. But you could easily say that there's just so much and you don't know what to do with all of that so much. But just feel it one bit at a time as things are bubbling up to the surface of your ascension.
Yeah, just having that approach, like just as you go, being able to face things and let go of even the idea that something could be too much, despite realizing like how much more life is, how much more there is as you start looking at things differently or seeing things differently or seeing new things or, exploring more of reality or yourself or anything, like not assuming that anything that you're come across, any experience that you're having, like that you can't face or handle, and just being able to, be like, oh no, I can face that too. I can deal with that too, and finding out as you go, like what you are capable of. It's like, yeah, it's not about some assumption that you're making about how much or too much or this or that. It's like all of that is just some assumption of how something is going relative to how you think it should be going. And like there it is. There's that should right there. It's like look at that. Look at that, because that's where it's coming from.
That said, we've got somebody in the queue. Hello, everyone. Or rather, hello, this person. We're going to let them in. It's Maddie. We love talking to Maddie. Maddie has been to 2 of our retreats, and it's always been awesome. If you would like to join the show, remember, dualisticunity.com/live. You'll end up in the queue, and then you can join us right after this. But I'm very curious to see where the conversation is going to go now. Maddie, how the fuck's it going?
Hey guys, not too bad. Just, going with the flow, seeing where everything takes me. Yesterday I kind of fucked up at work a little bit, but it actually wasn't. I was taking an engine back to our workshop and it wasn't strapped down properly and it fell over. But interestingly, I wasn't freaking out like as much or thinking like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, but whatever is going to happen, I'm ready to like just take it because there's nothing I can, really do other than say that I'm sorry and just learn from what had happened. But yeah, Amanda, that's awesome that you sold your car. And Andrew, like congratulations on the move. And I'm really excited for you guys. But yeah, it's nice to be here. I haven't been on a Colton show for, I think I've only been on one maybe or two, but yeah.
They're fun, eh? I
Mhm.
like them for sure. Would you like to weigh in on the free will argument? Do you think we have free will?
Uh, I I don't know. It's hard because we are like there is so much influence. Like we have influence, there's influence influencing us. I honestly don't know. Maybe it's a moment to moment thing. Like in this moment, I have the ability to choose what to do next. Sometimes I don't know, because like your body also needs to do things as well. Like if you gotta pee, like you can only like hold that off for so long until it's like, okay, I like have to give in, I have to do this. I feel like it's a yes and no answer. I honestly don't know. Like everything has everything leading up to now has been, I don't know. It's like I really don't know. I kind of want to say I don't know. It's such a interesting question to think about because yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
Mhm.
I love this question just because again, like, what do you mean by I? First of all, I was like, what do you like? Whose will are we talking about exactly? Right? There's that question, but then there's the idea that okay, so I'm influenced by everything that I've ever been exposed to, but I can also stop and know that. So that kind of changes things. Like all of a sudden, it's like I can just kind of go on autopilot. I can just do everything according to all my influences, or I can stop and become deeply skeptical of those things. But then again, am I becoming deeply skeptical because of some influence in that direction? And so it's so very hard to know, isn't it? But again, what do I mean by I? Because it all falls apart there. Because if it's all just influence, then it could just all be one organism. It could be all one I, in which case we're all just reflecting the same goddamn will. It's all of our free will, in that we have none.
Yeah.
Definitely not individually, right? Because as soon as it can feel like that, it can feel like you have that, but it's like, as if every decision that you make is based on some assumption that something's going to lead to some other sort of thing, and you don't really know that anyway, and you start to realize that it's like, oh, there's no guarantee of anything anyway, and so choosing one thing versus the other, you're like, well, I don't know what to choose or what to do, and that thought of like wants comes into question because it's like, well, if I know that there's no way to guarantee anything one way or the other, then how do I choose things now? And it's like, how much are you willing to look at how much those decisions as you look at those are stemming from some, not conditioning, but just like way of existing that's like right or correct based on where you learned right and wrong from. And that's kind of what we grow up experiencing, is like knowing all this. Well, that's the right thing to do, and that's the wrong thing to do. That's a good thing to do. That's a bad thing to do. And if that isn't there so much, and you realize that, oh, there isn't that sense of any of those guarantees, then the next step is like, well, who is deciding that? Like, who is choosing the next thing that plays out? Because there isn't a guarantee. And so, like, you can say that you are, but as soon as it's a me that I'm thinking about, it's like a thought that is necessary to choose, and then it fills in. But if that's not the case, then it's like there isn't so much of a thought about yourself. And then it's like you don't have that gap of being like, oh, I chose this. It's just there's more of a seamlessness, maybe flow. It's just that attempt to take ownership or have some assumption about what's being expressed or said, or how it is relative to how I think it should be.
Nice. Anyone?
I know we kind of already discussed that, but
Yeah,
Where do we go from here? Pick a direction.
and I'm gonna check for see if there's any other comments, because I was like, I don't know how, and many other ways I could say I don't know about the free will question.
We got ooh, that's a good example. I don't know what it was, but I'm very glad that it was a good example. Aside from that, no, then we are just left here freewheeling with our own desire to go in one direction or the other. I'd like to take a moment to bitch about Dune again. It's a shit movie. I just want to say, I'm sorry, I can't get that time back. But if you're thinking to yourself, I should go and watch Dune Part 1 and 2, yeah, you could do that, or don't, and go and check out year 2000 Space Channel Dune. Fucking great movie. Can't remember the guy's name. I will find it for you because it is just the superior story in general. Like the new Dune story, let me just put it to you this way. If you had any attachment to Paul Atreides' younger daughter or younger sister, don't go and watch the movie. She's not in it. It's brutal. It's just a piece of shit. And that's right. I'm complaining about this. You're like, really? This is the direction we went in from free will? Yep. Question is that free will? Or is that just Ray and his fucking programming going towards some habitual conversation? Because you can do that. I notice people do that all the time. It's really easy. All of a sudden they're like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what to say. I feel really anxious. I've talked about this before. Let's go that way. I have, and it's interesting to really watch when because you're just like, huh. Because you can worry about it. You can be like, well, why the fuck did you go in that direction? You could take it personally. You could do any number of things, or you could just look at it and go, it's gonna be okay. Like, you don't have to actually say that. Don't say that. Whatever you do, don't be looking at them going like, it's gonna be okay, man. They're like, I'm just talking about baseball cards. It's just,
They're gonna ask you, "Are you okay?"
right. But you can recognize at least what's happening there. They felt uncomfortable. They ran to a safe place. They ran to a safe conversation they've had before, something they know they feel certain about. Right. And you can recognize that, and it will soften your approach to that sudden left turn into a conversation you've never once provoked. You're like, why are we talking about cars? What is fucking happening? It's because they felt anxious, because they felt fucking.
That's right. Play Greatest Hits Volume 12.
Exactly. That is exactly it. Okay, so this Dune miniseries
Alec
stars
Newman.
Alec Newman. Alec, not Alex, Alec Newman. And William Hurt was in it, which just goes to show the quality of the fucking acting in this series. It's amazing. It's really well done. And it tells you the fucking story, as opposed to the recent piece of shit that hit movie theaters. You can go see it if you like the visuals, yay, check that shit out. But even then, it was lacking. It was lacking. I was pretty upset. Like, not really upset. Yeah, I was upset. It lived up to my expectations, which is that it would be a big fucking deuce. And it was filled with really high profile actors not acting.
Damn, just playing out roles. Yeah, no, that dude. Now it's like here I am.
Choose a direction, motherfucker. Choose a direction.
Oh man, because yeah, I mean any storyline like Lord of the Rings, for example. It's like great storyline. I've only seen it once, but seeing it all the way through, saw that with my brother last year. It's a good time.
We were thinking doing a movie review.
Yeah, we could do the whole series, could do Star Wars, could do Harry. I've never seen the whole Harry Potter movie at all, but like series, I mean, seen the first 3.
The books are always better. I'm definitely excited
Yeah.
for the Dune series,
Yeah.
like the book series, because it leaves room for your own imagination, right? They never tell you exactly every portion or trait of the characters. They never tell you exactly every single thing about the landscape. They leave some wiggle room so that you fill in the blanks. And so every person who reads that book is also getting their own unique version of that book because they're filling in the blanks that the author left out. And so it feels like you're reading a diary entry of the author. You're getting to know them in such an intimate way. They're letting you into their imagination, but they're also giving you room to play on their imaginary playground. And you're like, thank you so much, man. I'm going to make the most of this fucking all access pass. Let's go. I'm on the ride. Let's go. So I love that about reading. But when you're watching a movie, when you're watching a TV animated series, they take away the wiggle room. They're giving you exactly what the scene is, what the character is, what the traits are, what the plot is, what the character development is. They give you one very tunnel vision, limited version. And so the books rarely meet my expectations because usually the choices that get made for the movies are what they think is going to sell best, not what they actually think resonates with their interpretation of the author's creation.
Agreed. So we're done talking about Dune now, and I just wanted to say thank you for everybody going down that merry little jaunt with us. Appreciate it, Maddie. As always, it's nice to see you. I look forward to hanging with you at some point in the near future at a retreat, no doubt. 2025, we don't know where our big international retreat might be, so keep your ears open. But appreciate that you could join us today. I don't know if we're going to see you on Patreon after, but thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Unfortunately, I will be at work, so I will not join.
It's not
but I'll be
unfortunate.
on the
It's fortunate.
call.
Work is good.
I'll be on the call tomorrow, though.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Maddie. You take care.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye, Maddie. Talk to you soon.
Well, look at that. And we're not going to have much time now because we have somebody else in the queue, which is great. Look at this call-in show. Fuck yeah. If you would like to jump in the queue after this person, Jackie, I just wanted to say, go to dualistiCunity.com/live. Sorry, I had to sneeze there. And now we're going to let Marie into the show with us. Marie, always good to see you. Here she comes.
Marie, what is up? Live from New York, we got Marie.
That's awesome.
On a
Oh, man.
Tuesday afternoon.
Marie!
Marie, good to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to
What is
see
up?
all of you. Yes, happy Tuesday. Boo, boo, boo. Yeah, I really had nothing. I think I put in the comment, I don't know what I want to talk about, but I've been really enjoying listening in on the conversation today. And it got me tripping thinking about like the free will question. Because I really like the aspect of thinking about we like how much is just like we're influenced by, like it's just a lot of our decisions are based off of that influence. But then like what Ray was saying, because this is what I was thinking too, like once you become aware though, God, how am I gonna put this into words? Jesus. There feels like there is choice because there's like I'm choosing a lot of times how to approach situations. And okay, but then goes back to the trippy thought of like who am I talking about? Because I guess once I become aware of that though, once I become aware of there's no identity here. Let me just be the moment. That feels like a choice. You know what I'm saying? Like that feels like, but who's making the choice? It feels like it's just like you go back and forth with this. So which is why I wanted to jump in because I just get so fucking jazzed by this conversation and like and freaked out by like I feel all the things. Like I'm like, yeah, whoa, oh, scary. I don't know. A lot. And what's cool though is I had a what's it called? Ooh, I'm gonna have a bubble. I had a class today with my kindergartners. We're wrapping up the year, and I've been teaching them mindfulness this year. And I let them know today, like for me, what mindfulness is giving yourself the space to remind you that to trust yourself, that you got this, and that I spoke on the amount of times that when I would have fear or an intense feeling, I would hide in a corner. I would run away from that feeling and run away from the thing that gave me that feeling. And and then I realized that like I could just continue on even with that feeling that there had to be this trust in myself to go through the thing regardless of the feeling, that you're always going to be okay because you're here. And so I started talking about this and I just like so appreciate getting the space to talk about this, especially with like kindergarten age kids. And then I go like, okay, what did I just say? What did you all hear from that? And I love hearing like perspectives, because this goes even with talking to you all or whoever's listening. Like everyone's gonna have their perspective of what the fuck I'm saying, and even I do. So, and who's saying this? I don't know. Where's it coming from? Don't know, but it's happening. And so the kids responded with like, even when you're like feeling a lot or feeling hard feelings, like you could do it anyway. And I'm like, yes, okay, cool. All right, we're picking things up. We're putting things down. And so I often remind myself of these things. And so then I just find myself doing it in any aspect that I can, whether it's like I'm alone cooking a meal and experiencing that, or I'm having like what Amanda was saying too. Like I'm having a conversation with a stranger. I'm going into I'm approaching all these things, and years ago I had a lot of opinions and feelings about all those different things, and now I'm like having less opinions and feelings on it, and just not to say they don't come up, but I'm not, giving it all that weight. So it's just been interesting what happens when you do that. Yeah.
But yeah, that and like just that response to fear too, like going through fear itself, like we were talking a little bit earlier about just being in different spots and the opportunity for fear to arise and then assume that it immediately means something about what you're thinking about, and immediately it's like your mind can come up with all of these situations. It's like, oh, it must be that, and then it's like respond to that, trying to have some sense of control over a certain situation or experience, or being able to just think about things in certain ways or different ways to like minimize a fear too, instead of just recognizing that no, it's like there's just fear there. There's just fear, and you don't have to necessarily run from it. It's just what it is, and you're experiencing it, and that's okay. And it's not something that you need to get rid of, even that feeling, that sense. And so then you just keep moving, and then it's not like, oh, I can never get afraid again, because there's always that potential. There's always that potential to be afraid of anything. And so, yeah, if you're responding to it like, oh, I don't want to be afraid, then it's going to turn into a much bigger thing than it actually is.
Yeah. I like trying to live like we would in nature. I think we forget very much that we're still in the wilderness, to a large degree. And in the wilderness, you're not sitting there thinking about what could happen an hour from now, like to a very small degree outside of shit, the sun's going to go down, right? But the rest of the time, you're just paying attention to where you are and then acting according to the circumstances that happen. But you're really just living your life in a flow, one moment to another. That doesn't mean you're not aware of like the seasons changing and the difference in environment and all that stuff. You're like, oh shit, there's going to be less food soon. There's all of that. But it's also a moment to moment intuitive thing. Like we actually know this shit like to our bones. Andrew and I were talking earlier today about the time that I spent in the bush and the fact that there was no clock. Like, and once the clock's gone, once the obligations are gone, like once it's just down to like finding food and wood, then all of a sudden you just fall into a rhythm. You wake up early, naturally, because there's light. You go to bed kind of early, naturally, because it's fucking dark. Like shit like that. Like just, and there's this natural kind of moment to moment existence that happens in that place. But we have forgotten that regardless of the fact that we surround ourselves in this kind of concrete environment, we've never left the wilderness. We are still very much there, except now we've added monsters instead of just animals. In that we've become monsters to each other in our selfishness. So now it's so much more important to pay attention, so much more important not to make assumptions, because somebody might be so lost in their shit that they're trying to take advantage of you. It's not just a fucking animal with sharp teeth that's quite obviously trying to fucking eat your ass. So it requires so much more in terms of just being honest and attentive and aware and empathetic. Like we are still in the fucking wilderness. And we forget that. And you can be afraid if you want to, but that's not going to change the environment. And that's the one thing you really figure out when you are in the wilderness. Nature doesn't give a fuck what you think. Like, if you want to sit there in a fetal position, you're just food waiting to happen. You're just like, here, just put me on a platter. That's pretty much it. So if that's your choice, that's your choice, but you don't have to do that. You can feel afraid and move fucking forward, because you are also the wilderness. You're not just in it. You're a reflection of it and all of its wisdom. If you just have the faith in yourself and walk forward, you will see it. Or you can freeze, trying to analyze your chances and never actually move.
I was just talking with my teacher partner that trees will send each other nutrients, right? Like when other trees need it, or they just like naturally do it. And could you like they don't go, oh, are you a certain kind of tree, or are you a tree that looks this particular way, or acts in a particular way? Because I'll only give it to you if you meet these expectations of mine. Instead of just recognizing the good of all of us as if we're giving each other what we need, and and we make it become some kind of special thing that you have to look a certain way or have these certain things to obtain. Like, you just make all these rules up because I guess we can, I don't know, but it feels absurd, but also very funny that we often think we've become so removed from nature, not recognizing it is still nature because it's us, and like we're a part of nature, and so we're just doing the thing. But we can get caught up in what the thing is instead of just like going back to those instincts of just being here, paying attention to, like what you were saying, your environment, where you're at. And then you'll just naturally flow through what makes sense in the moment because you're acting on instinct and acting on what's happening currently instead of getting caught up in what it means. What does this mean about me though? Am I special? Am I You're special because you're the whole damn thing. I can't say that enough. Like, you're not special because you're this individual small part of it. Could you imagine? Like, why would you think that's what's special? That one little thing that could do, yeah. But I know it's just it's silly because when I don't get caught up in my own, uh, even just claiming that, but like in Marie's nonsense, and I just focus on what's here, what's happening around me, and what I can do from there without thinking about what it means about me. It's just, oh God, so much more fun.
Well, that's it, right? But it stops meaning anything in terms of value, right? Like it becomes a non-issue. It's not even a question. Like it's not something you can think about. And this is actually something. It's funny. You'll love this response because, of course, you know me and my whole thing about Jesus being just a person who recognized we're all the same fucking thing. And fuck, I was going somewhere with this, and I just derailed. Oh my God! Bam, gone. They were saying something, and then I said something, and it was very funny. And that was the entire point of the story. That's what I've got.
Appreciate the cliff notes.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Summaries.
Is everybody as satisfied as I am with the outcome of that story? I thought that was fucking great. I was going to go somewhere with that, and then it just trailed off into nothingness. And I guess that's the point, right? Like, so what? You know, you can do that, and it's just fine. That's what I was gonna say. There it is that you can do that, and it's because you don't need to be any higher. And so this person's issue with me saying that Jesus is just a person was he's like, oh, okay, so you're putting yourself on a pedestal, and the other person, somebody else is like, no, I'm pretty sure he's just putting us all on the same level. And the guy responded without missing a beat. Right, but if we're all on the same level, now we're just gonna have to establish who's higher again. It's like, no, you don't. You don't have to do that at all. Like, it's the whole fucking point is that you don't, in fact, have to establish some new measure of our value whatsoever. But it's so reflexive. It's reflexive. We're like, if I'm not establishing a sense of value, how do I continue on? It's like, you just continue on. Right? But how do I know I'm better than you? It's like, give it up. Because as long as you need to be better, you will always fear being worse. Sucks for
yeah. As soon as there's something you gotta hold on to or way to see yourself, it's like holding on to those things is what's cutting you off from like just being able to experience things without some sense of this being what I think it is, or some sense of like measuring yourself as you go, or some sense of something to live up to, even. And if you got to feel better about yourself, like there's always, even just in that, like, oh, I feel good about myself, I'm afraid of feeling bad about myself immediately. And as soon as there's that investment in something about myself, like you're on that spectrum right away, instead of just letting it go and not needing to measure yourself against anything, or trying to live up to a certain standard that you're only creating for yourself, because like those, all of the standards are just, they're just assumptions. There's just, you know, a bunch of people's different standards, and you couldn't possibly live up to all of them. So what, you know, what's the point of even trying? It's like, why not just live? You know, why not just do the thing that makes the most sense and continue to do that, and, you know, see where your life goes, see where your life takes you, instead of, because if you feel like you gotta control it to the next thing, it's like you're gonna always gonna do that, because that's very fucking tense as you go. It's like you can be tense your whole life, or you can stop doing that and not have to check in as you go with how you're doing, which, you know, sometimes includes how relaxed you're being. It's like, am I more relaxed now than I was? It's like, you don't need to do that either. You don't need to measure that sort of progress. How well am I relaxing now?
It sounds stressful.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I just wanted to say, Marie, as always, we really appreciate you calling in, being a part of everything, you know, being you. As far as it's like, do we have free will? I think it's all Marie. I'm gonna pin it on her. Take that however you want. It's all Marie's will, and we are all subject to it. It's just that we're all also Marie. So maybe I'm blaming myself, if in fact there's any blame at all. So Marie, thanks for being awesome. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you all, for real.
We will see you next time, hopefully on Patreon, shortly after this.
For sure.
Nice. I fucking love the call-in show. They're so much fun. That said, we got a little bit of time left, just a little bit though. So if you would like to jump on to the call-in show, you can do so at dualisticunity.com/live. And that will take you to the link, which will take you to another link, which will take you to the show, where you can talk to us about a bunch of shit. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I'm having a great day. I'm really having a bunch of fucking fun today. And it's just because, why not? Why not? Like, we always have this impression, like, if I'm not feeling serious, I am not getting self-improvement done. I'm not crawling out of my shit. I'm not going through that cathartic process of healing. Like, no, you're going through some theater that you need so you can eventually go, all right, I'm done now. That's it.
Yeah.
The shortcut there being, you can just say, I'm done now. And just be here. And recognize the only thing you're avoiding in all of your thinking about anything regarding the fiction of yourself is life. That's what you're avoiding. You're avoiding the fact that here now, you have no fucking clue what's happening, where you're going, or what it means about you. That's reality. You don't have a fucking clue. And that's okay. It's not something to worry about. It's something you did worry about because you were tiny. You didn't know how to feed yourself. You didn't understand how the world works. You didn't understand how to speak. You know, you didn't understand how to take care of yourself. And maybe you still don't, but now you got a fully formed fucking body and a fully formed brain. You have the ability to figure that shit out. You really do. So all of the things that once motivated you to just follow along are gone now. Which means that you can stand on your own in reality, here and now, and start figuring out what that means for you. Because it is just possible that all of the answers that you've ever been given by anybody were wrong. It is just possible, but that nobody fucking knows. That everyone's just guessing. It's entirely possible you are the only one that can understand reality. Maybe it's on you. And that goes back to the choice, the free will conversation. What do you mean by you? You know, but it really does have to come down to that. What if there's no gurus left? Are you just going to wait for someone to follow and they're going to lead you into fucking another circle? Or are you going to dare to stand on your own and just walk? Just pick a direction and go. And as you pay attention, you will become your own guru.
And that, just that willingness to stand on your own, and like, because as soon as you're looking to someone else, it's like some expectation comes with that, you know, comes with that looking to, and it's like, that's not faith in yourself at all. Like, faith in yourself is very much a solo journey, or it can feel like that, but again, it's not this thing that's built it's not something that's built at all. Like in reality, sure, but like the thought of it being built, like that's again like trying to measure it, trying to have some sense of knowing how well it's being built instead of just being involved in it. It's not like this, it's not this additional thing. Like it's no additional thing to this. It's not this is this thing which is leading to this. It's like, no, it's like just this. It's just this. It's not the assumption that you're making about it. It's not any of the assumptions that you're making about it, because you make an immediate assumption about what your idea to hear is, and it's gonna expand into, well, if that's true, and I believe that to be true, then it must mean this and this and this, which means this and this and this about me. But if it's not the immediate thing that you're assuming, then you're just here. And that's very much more feeling untethered, but then it's like maintaining that and not trying to maintain it necessarily, but it's just being able to keep paying attention, and not doubt as you go, that you're doing something right or wrong. It's like just continuing to step through. But if it's, looking for some sense of direction or a familiar way of doing something, then it's going to be impossible to try and maintain both, instead of just not needing to have some sense of any opinion about what's going on. Like again, the Krishnamurti quote that immediately comes to mind is, I don't mind what happens. And if that's the case, then you can keep living, keep experiencing things and not needing to pump the brakes so often as you go.
And that doubt just stems from the same fear, the same source of the fear, which is just the uncertainty. I don't know. And you turned I don't know into something to panic about. Because just as much you could say, I don't know. And that's exhilarating. But you just turned the I don't know of the moment that you're in into something to doubt. You need to know, you need to figure it out, or this fear that I don't know. And it's just digesting that from a perspective that you can't handle it, that it's separate from you, that you are powerless to it, right? And so that I don't know doesn't have to be something to fear, but you also want to give yourself grace, right? Of course I want to run when all I think of are reasons to run. Like, of course I do. You're like giving yourself that grace. And when I am honest about that, it's a lot harder to run when I admit that I gave myself the reason to run. Then that reason doesn't look as scary anymore. But that only happened when I was willing to admit and see and to have that moment of honesty with myself. And then that scary I don't know became, I don't know. And then that turned into, I don't know, let's find out, and yet the I don't know never really changed. All that changed was your perspective of the uncertainty that always remains. And so just coming back to that and being honest about that uncertainty and how you don't have to turn it into a problem, because it's not a problem until you look at it like it is. And then there's immediately a pressure and an expectation to come up with a solution because you just classified it as a problem.
Yeah, keep following the I don't know. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know how to feel about that. Right? Like, is panicking the right response? I don't know. Shit. It's like, what am I left with? I don't know. Shit. And that's really it. It's like, I'm left with here now. That's it. I'm left with here now. Pay attention. Pay attention, and that leads to something else, and that leads to something else, and that leads to something else. You don't have to fucking know. You don't have to know all of the things that you think you need to know, what it means about you, how valuable you are, where it's going into the future, what people fucking think about you. You don't need to know. You don't need to know. And what's worse is that the need to know haunts your very fucking life. Every moment, it's just this constant weight that actually makes it harder for you to listen to people, to talk to people, to express yourself and enjoy your moments. because you need to know that you're doing so. You need to know I'm making the most of my moments, and you can't like that. You know, what you can do is stop thinking about it. And all of a sudden you realize that you are actually enjoying your moment. It's funny. I was talking to Amanda yesterday. She was talking about the definition of perfect. It just means whole. That's all it means, is whole. It has nothing to do with being a concept of perfect where everything is exactly right according to the fucking judgment of my brain. But it means whole. And that means not dividing yourself with concepts, not judging yourself and splitting yourself down the middle between what you should and should not be. You cannot be whole and be the thing that you're thinking about. But when you let go of the thing you're thinking about as you are immediately whole, because you always fucking were, whether you could see it or not. You were always perfect.
And so, of course, you don't need to know
Mhm.
at all, because if regardless of what plays out, there's no need to know. You know, there's no sense of like, well, this would mean this and this would mean that. And there isn't really much, if any, hesitation as you continue to go through things and experience things. Like, it isn't so much of a, well, hold on, but this or that or this or that. It's like, no, you don't know. You don't know, you don't know. And yeah, you can just keep going with that. And then it's like it'll always bring you back to here if you're willing to be self-honest, you know, and not assume that one thing should be this way or that way, or that you should be this way or that way. And and I mean, that's got to be as close to the flow of things as you can be, is just not having so much of an opinion of anything as you step through reality, you know, as you keep exploring whatever all this is.
Mhm. Right. I did like that, because when I was learning, when that concept of perfection came up, it was like the way that the guy was describing it was like that it was whole and complete, and that you were only complete and considered perfect if you had made mistakes and had learned through it, and that the entire process of learning and making mistakes and falling off of this quote unquote path, and what you learned from it and what you took from it and what you evolved from it, that's how you reach this state of perfection, was through the entire process of quote unquote making mistakes, learning, growing, evolving, stumbling, finding your pace again, that whole process, and that was considered perfection. And I was like, that's fucking brilliant. Like, but we zoomed in on the mistakes. And we're like, oh no, get rid of those. We've got to get rid of those. And it was like, not necessary, because it's to think that you could never make a mistake is to think of all mistakes as an enemy, as some we're waging this war against mistakes, and the only way we win this war is if we never make a mistake again. If you were to sort of accomplish that, that would only mean that you knew everything, right? Because for you to never make a mistake means that you know every choice and every ripple from every choice, and how that's going to come back to you, and then how those next decisions are going to come back. And that would just be entirely scripted and curated. But there would be no surprise, there'd be no spontaneity, there would be no organic growth, because everything would be a prediction that is just being fulfilled, that you thought of prior to the prediction being experienced. And it's like, I don't need my life to be a prediction. In fact, I'd like to find out. Right.
Right. Yeah, because you don't need things to be predicted at all. Like that sense of needing to know anything, like anything, even like how anything could turn out, or any experience you could have, like that desire to know without experiencing things, you know, without actually going through the experience itself. It's like it's never going to be the thing that you're thinking about. So it's never going to be something that's, you know, you necessarily have control one way or the other about, because it's just what it is. Like, you of course make choices, but it's like, what's dictating those choices? What's driving those choices? Is it a sense of, you know, yourself and maintenance of just continuing to do the same sort of things that you've always done, or is it a sense of not needing to maintain that so much and wonder, what's there, what's on the table, and being able to, yeah, because if you're willing to do that, then you can step through new situations without so much of a need to measure yourself. Even it's not to say that there's not going to be opportunity there every time you go through something, but like the more you go through, the more opportunities you get to be able to measure yourself or not, or choose to, or to not to.
No, but it's something I've noticed is the more attention I'm paying to the moment that I'm in, the harder it is to measure myself, because usually to measure myself, I would need to stop what I'm doing to gauge how I'm doing. Right. So it's very hard for me to do what I'm doing and to measure what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So usually if I'm paying attention to the moment that I'm in, I forget to measure myself because I'm so engrossed in the moment that I'm in that I don't even think to break out the measuring tape. I don't even think to break out the standard, the bar, because I'm paying so much attention to everything that's happening. And there is so much that's in this moment. And so it's so funny because when I'll hear people saying that, life feels unbearable or life is boring, I'm like, oh, I can definitely tell that you've zoomed in on one part really hard right now. You've zoomed in so hard in this part. It's like, oh, this is so hard. It's unbearable. Or I'm zoomed in on this one part. I'm like, oh, this is so boring. Because usually when I'm zoomed out and I'm actually taking in, I can't even take in everything that's happening right now. And I am sitting in my apartment by myself and I can't even take in everything that's happening right now. So if I ever feel like I am either overwhelmed or bored, it's because I didn't notice that I zoomed in and tried to measure how I was doing while I was doing it. And that stopped all the progression. We're not doing anything anymore because now we're measuring how we're doing. And it's you think about like when they're measuring like racers, right? The racer, the track, what is it? The track team player isn't gauging their own time because he or she could not. There's no way that you could run your fastest and also be holding the clock while you're running. But it's someone else that's gauging how well you're doing, because it's almost impossible to be doing something, be paying full attention to that, and to be measuring how you're doing. So usually I just forget. If you're actually doing it, you don't usually remember to measure it.
Well said. Last call, by the way, everyone, if you are not joining the call-in show in the next 90 seconds, you are not joining the call-in show. Just wanted to throw that out there quickly, just because we are running out of time. And for everybody who has, in fact, submitted questions and been part of today's show, Amanda included, thank you. This has been a hell of a lot of fun. I've had just a blast. The Patreon call after this is going to be just so good. But I know actually there are quite a few people who are watching this live right now, which is great. It's so nice to see so much participation. I know everybody kind of went through a thing there. There was a whole thing that was happening for like 2 months in a lot of people's lives in the community. Shit just taken off. They were, away, going through stuff, and they've been coming back, going to the groups, chatting, kind of catching up. It's kind of like we all just wandered back into the same room. We're like, oh fuck, hey, how are you doing? It's been a blast. And so if you can join us for today's Patreon call after this in about 15 minutes, that'd be great. 20 minutes, in fact. And I'm going to shut up because we got somebody else in the queue. It's Jay. We'd love to see Jay. I will be right back.
Right. Jay, what is it up? Yes, we will be on Patreon. What time is it? 34 in about 26 minutes. So it's tier 2 plus call. So
Yep.
Hop in, tune in there if you're interested. Jay.
Hey,
Up,
Jay.
man? How you doing?
Hello. You didn't hear me the first
Our
time, but I
flame.
did, so hello. How's it going?
It's
Take
going.
two.
Yeah.
My
Good.
Nanaimo nights? Is that what it would be? Nanaimo nights?
The Nanaimo
Right?
Nights. Oh yeah.
Nanaimo nights.
Oh,
Yes.
here we are. Yes, indeed.
Loving it. I'm enjoying the conversation about the moment of now, because it's pretty prevalent to all of us in experience, so it's kind of like what's happening. And it's funny, like, people sometimes don't like to talk about this conversation, or they're like maybe avoidant of talking about, like, I don't know, it's reality to me, you know, this moment that we're in right now. That's just as real as it can possibly get. I mean, filtered through the senses that we have and everything, but that's what it's all about. And like on one of the Patreon calls earlier, last week might have been, I explained about how I had this situation at work, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a paradigm shift in where I had some mistakes happen and kind of got sort of bitched at, you know, and ultimately that was like a great fear of mine. It's how I'm being perceived by the people that I feel like should be perceiving me in a positive light, you know, and that was that, you know, that paradigm fell on its face. And so I was confronted with that. And that was a gift. That was a huge, huge gift. And like I was really feeling like some kind of heavy duty anxiety leading up to that. And it was to the point where like I felt like I was doing something wrong no matter what I did. Like I'd be like going to get somewhere and somebody else would be coming along saying there's a tight quarter. I'm feeling like I'm the one who's in the wrong place, you know, and it's just like two people just walking by each other, you know what I mean? But I'm like, oh, excuse me, you know, like, sorry, you know, like I wasn't able to like take up my own personal space without feeling like I'm doing something wrong. And that um paradigm shift that I had when I got bitched at or whatever, it made me realize that I don't really need to consider other people's opinions, and I don't really need to like hide who I am being in the moment either. And ever since then, it's just been kind of like smooth sailing, and that's not how I hope life is. I really don't, because like that all that anxiety that I felt, like that was, it was beautiful. Now looking back at it, it's like, man, because if I hadn't experienced that kind of like ultimate end of it, then I would still be sort of in that anxiety feeling. Like it's a double-edged sword, you know, the awareness of what's really going on. But I feel like it's important to at least take a look at things and pay attention without the judgment and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely get more of a sense of appreciation, you know, as you go through certain experiences or certain things where maybe you weren't paying as much attention. You know, you're really, whether it's at work, whether it's in any situation, like you're the one, you're experiencing consequences no differently than anyone else, because like we're not disconnected at all. So anyone at work who expresses any sort of thing to you, it's like when you take that in and pay attention to it, it's like there's an opportunity to change. And then it's like, oh, you know, those thoughts about how this thing was going, or your own behavior, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, no, there was some root to that, some focus to that, which then led to other things that were, you know, you deemed to be impacting, you know, your own experience, but really it's just, you know, you're doing it to yourself. Like it becomes a sort of like self-fulfilling prophecy where like in order to at work or in life act selfishly, it's like you start to be more aware of that, and then it's like you're the one who's going to experience the consequences in response to that if it's not like willing to respond to that with self-honesty, and then change, and again like not make promises but just change in the moment. And then it's like, you know, like you said with your experience, there's more of an appreciation, like, oh, there was something there that did stem from behavior that, not that you yourself have control over, but just the priority, like one over the other, that can get not misaligned but just distracted from sometimes. So yeah, I hear you. Okay, for sure.
A lot of it's where we put our attention, because you know the lead up to that event where I was feeling the heavy duty anxiety and stuff, and that was all created by me. And then when it was released, and I wasn't aware of that anxiety anymore, it was also released by me. Like it was only me putting the anxiety in the way in front of myself, you know what I mean, the considerations and stuff. And so that was where the paradigm shift was like real, as far as how it's felt in my life. And it changes everything, you know, when I'm not walking around scared like I'm walking on eggshells, gonna offend somebody, or any consideration about how people might take me or perceive me or anything like that. If I'm walking around like that, I'm gonna get a response from other people because I'm kind of sending out those signals, you know what I mean? And people are going to respond in kind. So I'm like creating this scenario that I'm desperately trying to avoid, you know what I mean? And that's really what the paradigm shift was like, hey, Jay, you know, like you actually like made that shit happen, you know what I mean? And you don't need to like continue on with that. And so considering like my experiences here in the now, I just choose not to these days. And like the thoughts kind of come along, but I see that now, and I can just kind of let that kind of move on by, and I don't have to like grab onto the wild dog's tail, you know what I mean? And go for that ride.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, it changes everything. Like all of a sudden you just got so much more time and free space. And it's just because all you can do is what you're doing. You know, like it's all you can do is your best. And sometimes people are going to be like, I didn't like that. You're like, I can get that. You know, and like all of a sudden, you don't have to feel like less just because somebody doesn't like what you're doing. It's just this a natural impulse, and it's just because we were graded. People didn't like what we were doing. We didn't live up to their standards. We suffered for it. Like we were actually told, like, no, you're not a very good student. You know, like your future's going to suffer. There was all this fucking shit. And so now you go to like my daughter recently, she's applying for a job at a local little juice stand. And she's like, what's your biggest piece of advice? I'm like, don't think this matters. You know, like, don't think that if you go in there and you do the interview and you don't get it, that it means anything about you. Like, there are so many reasons you may not get that job. You know, there's so many reasons you don't know, but we always want to go, no, I know why. I didn't get it because it's this. You know, these people aren't talking to me because of this. It's like, you don't know why. You haven't got a fucking clue. You know, if you just recognize that, you move forward. You know, and when shit happens, you deal with it. This is something I always say. Like, I understand that there are people who get offended at me and the things I say and all that. They're welcome to say something to me. You know, and if they do, I'll deal with it then. But if they don't, that's their problem. Right? Until then, like that's it. But I don't go around going, oh, that might have offended someone. If it did, they can talk to me. You know, and that's why I don't mind going about, is because I'm not afraid of those conversations. Like, I'm not afraid of admitting I did something insensitive. I'm not afraid of admitting I might be wrong. You know, tell me. Or you can hold a grudge, in which case, again, not my circus.
Yeah, and thinking about it all that time ahead of time doesn't really need to happen. Like you said, there's just so much more time. And like I've noticed that because there'd be times in the day when somebody would say or do something that normally I'd be getting all stressed up and worked up about, you know, and that event would happen, say, and I'd be like, oh, that's interesting, and it wasn't personal like anymore. You know what I mean? So like that was the end of that. It didn't turn into this big long diatribe in my head about, you know, oh, he said that or he acted that way, so he must be, you know, talking shit about me. Now this guy's going to talk, you know, all the scenarios, you know, we all come up with all this crazy stuff. I don't mean to call it crazy, but it really kind of is, because it's all just created out of nothing, you know, like, and even if somebody just straight up told me what they think of me, they still don't even know me. They still have no idea who I am. They've probably seen me for like a half of percent of my lifetime at the most. Like most people that even the people that like really know me, like say my mom, like I've only been around her for maybe 10-15% of my life. Like she doesn't really know me. I don't really know her. And I don't even know myself. Like honestly, like I'm just a changing thing. So if I don't know me, how can anybody else know me? And anything that they say, how can it be real in any way? It
Well
can't.
said, man. Fuck yeah. Way to end the episode on that note. Because that's really it. You know, it's the fact that if I can't accept that I can't know myself, I'm always going to want to jump to an assumption about you and everyone else. Because I need to jump to assumption about myself. But once I accept I can't know you, I don't know you because I can't know me and I don't know me, all I can do is watch myself unfold. Well, then you and I can actually have a fucking talk as real people without assumptions being in the way. So I appreciate you jumping in here last, man. Thank you so much. Right up to the fucking close. We will see you on Patreon, hopefully in about 15 minutes. Everyone, thanks for joining us for this awesome episode.
This has been a blast as always. Jay, love it. Love the mother background on the heart of the earth.
Oh yeah. I forgot I still had
Saw
that.
that the other day, yeah, on Mother's Day. So yeah, we'll talk to everyone soon. Amanda, thank you for sticking around as always. And we'll be seeing you very soon. Very, very soon.
Jay, take care.
Hope to
Thank
get
you to
chatting.
all of our listeners. Amanda, you want to wrap this one up for us?
Oh, all right. Well, no, I love it. I love this process of getting to know this moment and ourselves outside of just the concept of what we want it to be. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And there will be more. So stay tuned. And I hope you just make the most of being right here, right now, because sometimes being here feels like enough. And right now, that's how it feels for me.
Bye, everyone.